Welcome to the Resilient Mindset Podcast, an exciting new podcast by Resilience Queen, Justine Martin. Justine is the owner and founder of the Resilient Mindset, a division of the Justine Martin Corporation. Justine draws on her years of experience and knowledge consulting with clients to develop and sustain a positive mindset. Focused on igniting your passion, purpose and power, follow the Resilience Queen each week as she delves into the mind of her guests, exploring fascinating stories and inspiring journeys.
Annie Gibbins is a multi-award winning #1 bestselling author, publisher, MC and international keynote speaker. She is also the founder and CEO of Biz Global, a high-profile business dedicated to helping women entrepreneurs start and scale their businesses to become wildly successful in the global market. With over 20 years of experience in business development, marketing and entrepreneurship, Annie is a seasoned expert in her field. She uses her visionary thinking and authentic storytelling to empower women entrepreneurs to overcome challenges and achieve their big, hairy, audacious goals. Women's Biz Global provides personalised mentoring and coaching, as well as brand elevation through various media channels, including TV, podcasts, magazines, summits, and book publishing. Annie's leadership has made Women's Biz Global a force to be reckoned with in the world of women's entrepreneurship, and her commitment to promoting diversity and inclusion in the business world is widely recognised. Welcome, Annie. How are you today?
I'm well, thanks, Justine. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. We love having guests on the Resilience Mindset podcast. Let's get into it. What does resilience mean to you?
I think resilience to me means that you're just strong enough, you're capable enough to actually realise that things sometimes don't work out your own way, and it's about learning from that and just moving forward, to be able to fail forward, if you like, to actually just have those moments to go, oh, okay, I either stay in this place and I definitely need to learn from it, but I don't dwell in it. So resilience to me is about saying, it is that classic bounce back ability, but doing it in a way that I want to be stronger and smarter and wiser and more capable next time.
Yeah, I like that definition. I always look at, out of this adversity that I'm facing, what's something positive I can take away from it?
Yeah.
And then it's easier to face then the future of what's happening in your life. So what's an adversity that you've faced, Annie, and how did you draw on your resilience to cope?
Oh, I think I've had so many moments that I've been sort of stopped in my tracks in life and just went, oh my gosh, like where to from here? Probably one that would just fascinate your listeners is actually being told that I had my second set of twins. So it's quite a long time ago now, but I had two sets of twins in 2 years, right? So that's just going to floor anyone. And I was only 23 and 25 when I had all of these children. So was that one of those moments? And I was just this young girl who dreamed of, I want to be a businesswoman. I want to make amazing things happen. I want to be this, I just knew I had leadership skills and I wanted to be a manager and I could just see big things. And then I also wanted to be a mom. And then when I had twins first, it was like, oh, wow. But I felt like I was like the chosen one. It was just so exciting. And how amazing is that? We're having twins. And then when they were like 14 months old and I found out I was expecting a second set of twins, it was just like, oh, how do you even process that? And how do I then at that stage actually go, yeah, we'll manage, but going from that mindset of we're going to just have to do the best we can, or, and a lot of people saying, how are you going to cope? And it's this tone of this is going to be really hard, but it's not as if it's a short-term hard. This is life. This is life. You're a mum for a long time. Yeah. So I think from there, it's like, whether I'd call it adversity, it was certainly a challenge, having any...
That's an adversity. It's definitely an adversity.
And, to actually go, right, James and I were like, right, we are going to just go, this is our life and we are going to love our life. And so it's this, I think, Justine, it's conscious choice, you know, and a lot of my life has been like that. It's constant, intentional decision making, and we have choices every day as to how we show up every single day. And there were those days that, you know, 4 kids with chicken pox is not fun. You know, accidents, illnesses, moments of tantrums in really embarrassing places and all that sort of stuff. But there were also those moments of, you know, we are so blessed and we are so thankful for these beautiful beings in our life. And also we need to make ourselves open for the other things, because we're not just parents and we're not just, you know, husband and wife. We are people who are born onto this planet for a reason. And how do we actually bring out the best in each other back in those days? And then also for me moving forward, you know, if I was going to at some stage in my life be this businesswoman that I always had this heart's desire to be, then I'm going to actually have to, you know, put some growth mindset principles, which I didn't see at the time were that, but I actually had to make choices every day that was going to say, I'm going to back myself. I'm going to keep showing up as my best self. I'm going to accept when things aren't perfect and that's challenging. I'm going to not stay in that moment of frustration and also worse than frustration, actually envy, jealousy of other people who had more support, other helpers, family members. You know, when you're doing a lot of things yourself, it's really easy to go, oh, woe is me. And that keeps you in a dark space. Whereas if you actually go, you know, it would be lovely if I have had some help, assistance at times, but I'm not depending on it. My life is actually really great despite the things that I would like. That actually took me into a very different place of opportunities that really have just I've been constantly dazzled by what actually can be achieved in life.
That's great. That's great. So what's been your biggest failure today, and what resilience techniques did you use to get back up?
Well, it's really interesting because I don't see failures. I don't think in that language. So
no, neither do I.
Yeah, it's kind of like confronting to me going, yeah, I think a lot of people do, whereas I actually don't. I just live in a different world of the description of failure. I've certainly had challenges that I've then gone and said, okay, that didn't work out for me now, so how am I going to approach that differently? So certainly, you know, I navigated 3 degrees around 5 children and I had this desire to sort of keep chipping away till I sort of cracked C-suite roles. And since then, I've been a CEO, as you know, for, 12 years and have my own companies and things like that. But back in those earlier days, I had some moments that really were breakers for me, that I had to realize that there were possibly failures there were moments that I didn't go for things. There were opportunities that I went, well, I won't go for it because other people won't like me. They will, that seniority rules used to be,
or I'm not good enough.
I'm not good enough. That person's been there longer. All her friends will hate you if you get it. What will other people say if I'm, that you'll be a bad mum if you get a full-time job, and who's going to be parenting your children as if they don't have a father, things of this nature. And so I think when I had moments like that it was more that I didn't show up. It's just like, so there were moments that I did show up and I also didn't get those roles. And, some of them I got the first role I got and I'm like, wow, I must be amazing. And then others that I felt like I was more capable and I didn't. And then it was, rather than say, oh, that's a failure, because it suddenly is confronting, going, what's wrong with me? Have I not done something right? Whereas I actually in those stages said, I need to really step back and start learning from these opportunities. So that's when you mentioned the word failure to me. It's just, I just fail forward. I see everything as a learning opportunity. So if I didn't get that job, why didn't I get that job? I'd make that extra phone call and say, would I be able to have some feedback on why the other candidate was successful in that role? So there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't want to keep repeating if I did do something that could have been improved. Maybe sometimes it's just the flavour on the day and we need to get ourselves over it. Or if I didn't go for an opportunity, to actually have those conversations and say, if I went for that role, do you think I would have been considered? And then usually after the fact, of course, they go, hell yeah. What? We were really surprised you didn't go for it. And I'm like, interesting.
Oh,
so it's about bugger that, backing yourself and just go, what is the harm in, if something's on your heart and the opportunity presents, what's the harm of trying? Is no the end of the world if you don't get it? No, it just means that, I tell you what, you learn interview skills, you put yourself, you become more confident, you become, this person who says, well, percentage wise, if I keep trying for things and I keep rustling cages, then things will happen. And that's exactly what happened in my life.
And what if they say yes? I mean, you've got a 50% chance of them saying yes.
I know.
That's how I look at it. Is the glass half full to you, Annie, or is it half empty?
Oh my gosh, my glass is overflowing. Mine's not half full or empty. It's like seriously overflowing all the time. I just see that opportunities are everywhere. So in the world that I live in now, I'm actually thinking it's more that I have to have conscious choices on what I take on board.
Yep.
Because I see that there is so much business to go around. There's so many opportunities. And I know other people will go, really? Yes, because once you get to a position that you see, collaborations, which is the world I live in, on collaborations, helping each other, networking, using your skills to their maximum advantage, honing those skills and working on your skills rather than your weaknesses. Once you do, you sort of get into this space and you realize that if something doesn't work out, but it's important to you, just keep trying, or different ways to get more creative. It's exciting. It's more like a game than a challenge. It's fun, so those sorts of things I don't get intimidated by now. So now I actually go, oh my gosh, I feel like I just wake up every day and go, like, I just love my life. And so even when there are challenges, but I go, oh, this one's going to be hard. I'm going to have to, it's almost like I really want to attack something that I haven't done before now that's really going to stretch me. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I am. So definitely glass overflowing.
Mine is, the glass is always refillable. And if you break that glass, just go buy another one.
Go and get another one. Go get
another one. How many times have I done that?
Mine's overflowing, but a point that I'd love to say, and I do that with my coaching clients, is I also try to stay at about 80%. So what I mean by that is if you're filled up at 80%, I've still got wiggle room for life. And I'm going to need that, so because of health, you suddenly have a sickness, someone in the family might have an accident. I've got 5 adult children, 2 granddaughters. I run a number of businesses. I'm very busy. So I need that 80% wiggle room, that if everything's dreamy, then I actually use that to work more on my business, work more on myself, get fitter, healthier, things of that nature. And if everything is actually already falls to pot, which it can sometimes, suddenly you get COVID or one of the kids just really needs me, then I'm not just so stressed all the time. I'm actually like, okay, well, we can manage that. So I feel like I'm glass overflowing, but I'm intentional with what I really put in that top sort of level, just so that I don't get burnt out, because I deal with I coach a lot of people who are at that burnout level or it's just been really hard. And I know at other stages of my life that I've just worked too much, too hard. Yep. And so actually the more successful you become, you can sort of sit back and go, all right, I'm a lot more positive automatically. I see opportunities, but I also don't want to get so crowded and so overloaded that I don't get to smell the roses, that I don't get to enjoy the opportunities, and also have that freedom. One of my biggest, strongest values is freedom. So I want to be creating a life that enables me the freedom to make choices that are great for, myself personally, but also my marriage, my family, lifestyle choices. So they're really important to me. Otherwise, sort of what am I doing it for?
Yeah, there's some great advice there, Annie. Who are your role models in resilience?
I think my 2 role models for life have been my grandmothers, who've both passed actually, but they were both amazing role models for me. So I think I've just sort of channeled them my entire life, that I haven't then looked to people who are living. I think I'm so anti-competitive. I don't sort of look at other people thinking I want to be more like them, or I really focus on that. I admire a lot of people and their qualities, but sometimes I can't relate to that. Someone with, a strong disability, or someone who's become an Olympian, or someone who has really broken through adversity or through, abuse or trauma. I've got qualities that I go, wow, I just really look at the qualities of that person. And, someone like Turia Pitt, for example, I just go, wow, absolutely amazing. But I don't really have that focus of I want to be like that person or model myself on that person, because for me, it's more aspects of that person and their journey and story that I go, wow, I want to be more like that person in that aspect of their life.
So that's more like who inspires you then?
It's more inspires me, but the inspiration comes from how they have sort of been resilient in their life. So I sort of connect it in that same sort of way. My grandmothers were incredibly resilient. One of them went from being an aristocrat in Russia to a refugee in Australia, and lost all her wealth and her title. She was born a baroness and ended up being a refugee,
Wow.
and things like this. So amazing things. So there's a life story and a journey, and her journey was inspirational, but it was also the resilience when you just keep backing up going, I don't feel like this person that other people think I am. You have to really, redefine self. And also, even if you do that, knowing that your life or, those opportunities might not be there even however much you want it. So it's this creation of a sense of self in a different place. And my other grandmother grew up dirt poor, and she was a real pioneer in for women working, raising her 3 kids when her partner left and things. And I learned so much from her from an inspirational perspective. But once again, for me, I must just link the two together. Why is she inspiring? Because she was left, as a single mum back in the day when other people worked. She went to, she kept knocking on doors until she became a chartered accountant. And back in those days when women didn't even work for her to do that, when she, really stepped up and learnt new skills and started becoming, really quite, incredibly competent at her role against a lot of personal challenges. For me, they're qualities that I go, wow, I want to be resilient in a way that I saw challenges happen in both these amazing women, but it's not what happens, it's how they respond to it. And that's the quality that I look at, whether it's my grandmothers that I reflect on, or whether it's, celebrity stories that you hear about, or just everyday people that might be on my team or in jobs that I've had or that I meet on, summits or through networks around the world. It's hearing their story and then saying, okay, well, how did they then, it's almost like, what was the next step? What is the response that they took? How did their mindset affect how they moved forward in that instance? And so for me, that's what I find the most fascinating. It's like, because everyone has a choice. At every moment you have a choice in the way you use that language in your mind, the way you act, the way you communicate that to others, the challenge that it's had. It's quite fascinating, and because that's replicatable. So if they do it once in a way they share their situation, they'll be doing that to everybody they meet. They'll be doing that in their internal dialogue. That will be then affecting their personal life, their professional life. And so I see the ripple effect of mindset and responses to situations. I find that all quite interesting. So yeah, I do love this conversation about resilience.
Awesome. What are some of your passions in life, Annie?
I'm super passionate about helping women grow globally.
I would never have known that.
Obviously, that's my business. And so as a woman who sort of, navigated pretty challenging role to C-suite back in, over the last 30 years when it's more male dominated than it even is now. I remember when I first became a CEO, it was 4% women were CEOs, and now really it's probably about 16%. The stats change, but depending on the sector that you're in, they're probably still only 6% if you're actually looking at, at top ASX listed companies. And so my passion is for women to have an easier journey, and that's pretty much the why behind Women's Biz Global, my company. So I'm passionate about that, but I'm also passionate about health and wellness. I'm passionate. I go mountain climbing. I'm a hiker. I've had adventures around the world that I get to stay fit and healthy, but but I also get to do that with my beautiful husband who treks around with me. I also do that with my lady trekker friends. It allows me to stay healthy but spend time on the trail, which allows me to just, you walk and talk and stay connected with different people, or people that, you've had history with, that you meet up on the trail, and you might be in very different stages of life. So, I love kayaking, I love hiking, I love adventure, I love travel, all these sorts of things I'm super passionate about. I'm mainly passionate about just really celebrating people's wins. And so in that way, I think people will go, oh, you're super competitive because you're a businesswoman and I'm wanting to grow, my Women's Biz Global empire. And absolutely, because I want to create the most amazing platform and service that I can to those that I serve. But actually, I don't feel very competitive, because I also one of my big passions is actually just celebrating the wins of others. I get so excited with every coaching client that I have, or every time I get offered to speak, I get excited and passionate about the message shared. Not that I'm going to share it, but I go, I wonder what that take-home message is going to be for someone today, that's really going to help their life. And so that's what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about helping solve a problem for someone else. If I can make it easier for them on their journey, and they actually go, I'm so glad I was there at that moment and received that little gold nugget. That to me is just like a gold star day.
And I can tell, because you're actually glowing when you talk about it. So if you're listening to this, listeners on the podcast, we do have it available as well on Justine Martin Corporation YouTube channel, and you can jump on there and actually watch the vlog. So, Annie, how do you cope with pressure and setbacks?
I am super, super organized. So I have lists and lists and lists on everything, but I don't just have to-do lists. I sort of am a reverse engineer, if you like. So I'm always thinking, what's my big vision? How am I going to measure success in that way? And then I go back to, all right, to get there, what decisions do I need to make? What sort of thing, what goals do I need to have? And then I'm going to go reverse from there and go, right, what steps do I need to make those goals happen? The reason I sort of do that is very much that's the life of a CEO, that you need to not be reactive. You need to be very strategic, and to know that you're on a solid pathway to actually achieve what you want to achieve, because your future's your sum of today's. And so if you're not doing it today regularly, you're never going to get to that future you want to inherit. But I think when if I do that, then I've generally got very organized to-do lists of things that I want to achieve in a day. Now, I'll also get moments that on top of that, they'll be really, really busy days, right? So I'll have surges. So, for example, I've just come off Women's Biz Global. I've just had a summit all weekend. So I've got 40 plus speakers from around the globe, and it's hugely hectic. It's just crazy. And then there will be the things that will go off, like someone's internet fails, or you're suddenly thinking, is it on, is it off? Or someone goes and says, I'm not going to be there because suddenly they got stuck at the hairdressers or something. And, life happens. You go, really? And so things like that happen. And so you get overwhelmed. But for me, it's a bit more like, okay, well, someone else's, failure to plan is not my emergency. Or if this is
quote. I use that one all the time. Your failure to plan is not my emergency.
Exactly.
Especially to the kids, your failure.
Exactly. So I'm now going, okay, if I can put something into a plan that is organized and, and I'm responsible for that, then, something else goes belly up, then I'll go, if I can assist, I will. If I can push it back, I will. But if I can't, I won't bust my neck to try and do that. I used to do that. I used to go crazy to go, I have to make sure that this happens. It's because I wanted to just go, yes, I can do that. Yes, I can do that. But that to me just put me into overwhelm. That just made me just crazy busy. So for example, someone popped into my platform the night before the summit and said, I want to speak. And I'm like, if I knew them, I'd slot them in, because that would be a pleasure. If I don't know them, I go, I have to now make conscious choices all the time to go, appreciate you'd really love to. The next date in 3 months' time is here. So I'm a lot better at actually knowing what my boundaries are, actually mapping things out and go, when something happens, am I responsible for it? And if I am responsible for it, can I make those changes? Yes. If I can't, or if it's not my fault for whatever the outcome is, then I then have to then go, okay, well, what is the best solution? And be quite happy to sort of just say that's not going to work for me or everybody else at that time. And so it's just a choice not to get overloaded. And also, if it just gets busy, I try to make sure that the busies happen in spurts. And what I mean by that is, and it's a very much in the business world, we talk about sprints. You'll have a sprint and then you have a bit of get yourself organised again. And so that kind of sprint process works well for me. So I might have a super busy weekend, for example, a summit weekend every 3 months, or if I'm doing some speaking circuits, or if I'm just putting a book together. But then I also need to make sure that I book in those time out days that I'll suddenly go, right, I actually need to have some time reading, or go for a kayak, or have some sleep, because otherwise, it'll catch up for me in a bad way, right?
You pretty much just answered my next question, because that was going to be, how do you practice self-care and personal wellness?
By putting it into my diary. And I know people go, oh, wow, she's systematic, but I actually do. In fact, not only do I put it into my diary, I put it into my diary first. And by what I mean by, so I have date night. I've been married now for 35 years this year. We have date night every Friday night. That's what James and I do. All our kids know, if they pop in or something, even now, they'll go, oh, sorry for bothering you on date night. Yeah, that's what we do. So we'll always do something, and that's in my non-negotiable, unless an emergency happened, things could happen. But that's our date night. I'll also have yoga, a couple of times a week. I'll then go, James and I often go for a kayak on a Sunday morning. We'll have things, so my exercise routines, when I'm doing something, I'll put them in ahead, because then they're not negotiable. And then I have my business, my other things that then get popped into my diary. When I don't do that, and I know those I coach around the world have the same problem, that it then becomes I'll see if I can get to something. And if you have that attitude, likely is you won't. If I think I'll see if I'll get to yoga on a Tuesday night at 7:00 and I've had a busy day, I won't get to yoga. Right? Because I'll suddenly, I've had a busy day, I'll sit down and have a glass of wine at 6 o'clock.
Or you'll put someone else in. That'd be interesting. Yoga and wine. If you don't make that appointment with yourself and put it into your planner or your diary, your calendar, and then someone else comes and says, oh, at 6 o'clock tonight, and you look and go, oh, yeah, I'm free. And then later on it's like, oh, I was going to go to yoga tonight, but I forgot about that.
Because you haven't prioritised it. You haven't gone and said, this is a not negotiable. Now, once again, there will be many, many moments that I have then I've cancelled something that was one of my not negotiables because, one of my kids needed me, or someone was sick or whatever. So you don't want to be totally rigid about it, but it's one of those things that you do. And I know, I'm a success coach, so I know what do successful people do. They do consistent, intentional action. They know how to focus on things. This is the secret of success. And so by that means that if I have it in my diary and it's not negotiable 95% of the time, it means that I'll do it and you get the results of that. The same way as a yoga or a Pilates or even just time out to Saturday, half the day on Saturday, me time, whatever that will be. It might be reading a book, it might be seeing a friend, whatever. Those sorts of things create consistent patterns that will then result in that balance. And it just works.
That's great advice there. What's your favourite movie that features a person's inner strength to get back up?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. I should have looked at the questions before you had.
We don't like to give the questions out first, Annie. We like to put you on the spot.
Favourite movie? I'm usually into those older ones, Dead Poet Society or The Power of One or those sorts of movies. So I'm probably not a big movie sort of fan, but they're usually
TV show too.
people who've just had these stories. So it'll be people who've had, like the Nelson Mandela sort of moments in life that you go, that's someone that I love them being a champion of change. I love the fact that even when, they've had those moments of great challenge, trauma, disappointment, hardship, usually moments that are not fair, because often life isn't fair. And then it's their story of becoming, I suppose any movie really, which has a story of becoming, and it results in them becoming their true self, but in a way that if they hadn't had that story, that journey, not that you want to wish it on anyone, but if you hadn't had that, then you wouldn't be that person of today. So that's probably my response to that.
I've just finished watching Schitt's Creek.
I love Schitt's Creek.
And that's a story on resilience.
It really is. Oh my goodness, I'm such a fan of Schitt's Creek. I watch it all the time.
Well, I started watching it and didn't like it, and then with the broken arm and sitting down doing nothing for 6 weeks except for eating potato chips. But that's a whole new podcast on itself, that one. I started watching Schitt's Creek again, and when I got to the end, I went, that whole thing has been about resilience. It's about resilience, but it's also about, treating people with respect and equality. There's a lot of, there's a lot of themes. There's a lot of themes in there. It's incredibly well written. Anyone who hasn't watched it, seriously, you should watch it. I love all of the storylines. They're just such unique characters. But, the essence of it is that you've gone from hundreds of millions of dollars of wealth and living in a distorted perspective of what the world is actually like, and then you get popped into a trailer park type suburb and all of life and living in a motel
and living in a motel. But that sort of journey though, it's hilarious because it's obviously a comedy, but it's that same sort of journey of becoming, even if you look at Schitt's Creek, then it is, the key characters, who they were at the beginning, did their circumstance change that, in the last episode, they're on the way to getting a lot of things back again, and they will follow a journey that will then slightly represent.
But they left as different people.
But they left as such different people, and that's what I love. Even if it's my grandma's journey of coming across the world, and not fitting in, but then you become this funny, eccentric, hilarious person that you never would have if you were pampered for all of your days.
Your grandmother and my grandmother must have been the same person, because my grandmother was Russian who came to Australia in 1926. So they came in through from China, but I look at their journey and what they came into the country with, and my great grandfather. So my great grandfather was in his early 40s when he married my great grandmother, who was 14 at the time, and they ended up first in King's Cross and then Darlinghurst in Sydney, and he was a chandelier maker and then an engineer, and what he built out of nothing was just amazing.
It's incredible, isn't it? But the essence of this conversation is that the person they become, you're tested. It's like your worth and your values and the true essence of who you are when it's been tested, because you are a fish out of water. You're just going, this isn't me. Like in Schitt's Creek, I don't live in this. I'm not that person. I'm that person. But then when you get everything stripped away, who are you really? And that's what I actually love, and that's because that's who I coach, those women that I coach around the world. It's actually stripping back the layers and go, who do you truly believe you are? And in that journey is then creating the business or the lifestyle, the model that actually is going to support them to bring out the very best of them. But it's not it's not the other way around. It's not that if you have this life, you'll be that person, because that person is fake. When you show up every day effortless, which is what you want, right? You just want to be so in the zone that you're loving life, that you just go, I'm working, I'm in a business, or I have gifts and talents that provides an income that I absolutely adore, whether you're an artist, painter, writer, whatever, then you can bring out the essence of who you are, and you can morph that into, being in the location or the environment that supports that best.
Yeah.
It's like, what garden are you planted in? Make sure it's with all the right aspects for you to grow.
And that you're not standing there with the weeds.
You're not sitting there with weeds if you're not a weed. You're not sitting there with a tall tree with no, up high when you're a little fern. Are you? So there's lots of, and that's another parallel when I'm out,
and it's
in
okay
nature.
to be a tall poppy.
Oh my goodness, it's all right to be a tall poppy, and I'm a tall poppy now, and I'm just like going, yeah, that's right. You don't have to please everybody. And I'll get people saying, I don't know if I'm your cup of tea. I go, well, you're probably not, because I'm a champagne girl. And so I'm a party girl. So if you're just a tea person, I'm not your person.
Yeah.
And they just look at you like, oh, because you're supposed to always be worried or defensive or happy. You go, no. If you just go, oh, that's right, that's because I hang out over here, and this is my world.
And be your authentic self.
Be your authentic self. And if that doesn't suit or resonate with someone else, you know what? There's a million
then they're
people
not your
in the
tribe.
planet. Go and find your
tribe.
own tribe. So much so that even in business, I'll sometimes get referrals from someone, and after that first little connection, not feeling the jam, I know if I'm not feeling it, they're not feeling it, but I'll then sort of tap into that person and go, oh my gosh, you would love this other person. I'd rather refer them on. And I've had a new referral for that same reason from someone else this week, that they said, you need to speak to Annie Gibbins. And you can see when we first met each other, they're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a great relationship, and that's what you want. There's a tribe for everybody. There's a place in the world for everybody. And the sad thing sometimes is it's not sad. It's a challenge. And the quicker you realize it's going to be a challenge, it's actually just finding where that is. Sometimes you were just born into the little garden that you want to reside in, and you've had a family that supported that person, and life's pretty easy. Other people go, seriously, I'm born in the wrong country. I'm born in the wrong time. No one relates to me, and then that can make you spend a lot of time thinking, what is wrong with me? Why am I so different? Whereas you're not. You just haven't found where all of those like people are. And when you do, and you suddenly walk in the room and go, oh my gosh, here you've been all my life.
I feel like home.
I feel like home, and it's just such a joy, and it's just so much easier, and you get happier, and it instantly makes you realize, oh, I don't have to try so hard.
That reminds me, we are the sum of the 5 people that we hang around.
So true.
And if you want to better yourself in life, well, then don't hang around with the weeds.
Yes.
You want to be a tall poppy, don't hang around with the weeds.
Exactly.
What's your favourite quote, Annie?
Oh, my favourite quote. Oh, off the top of my head.
Yeah, we like to give hard questions on this podcast.
You do. I don't think in quotes. I think in just actions. Probably say yes and work it out later. Probably that will be one for today, right? It's a bit of a Richard Branson moment. So if you have an opportunity that actually comes by, then and it actually resonates with you, but you don't know all the details, I'll go and say yes. That sounds like a really fantastic. I don't have to promise it's going to be delivered. I don't need to give it to time, to budget, to everything. But if I actually get that instant gut connection, or it makes me smile, or my heart rate goes up and go, oh, that's interesting, right? Then I'll go and I'll say yes. And then I'll very much work out the practicalities later. An example of that is, last year I had a woman approach me and sort of said, oh my gosh, I want to be on the cover of your magazine. Tell me how you do that. I didn't actually have a magazine. Like, what's the likelihood, right? But I tell you what, I do now. I've got Women's Biz magazine now, because I'm like going,
one day I'm going to be on the cover of that, listeners.
Absolutely. So I then went and said, so I get this email and went, so my instant self is, I don't actually have the magazine. And then I went, but I got so excited, went, how cool is that? Why doesn't
someone planted a seed? And
why doesn't Women's Biz Global have a magazine? And so I then went, so then I seriously thought about it for all of more than a millisecond, but not much longer. And then went, of course, I'd love you to. It's a really great time. I'm just putting that all together. I'd love you to be on my first cover, of which she came back and she did, right? And then since then now it's just gone taken off, and I'm having a special edition for International Women's Day as well as my normal edition. I've thrown it as value adds into my coaching programs, and there's all this opportunity. And now, like months later, I'm like, imagine not having that magazine. Now, I'm not saying you have to say yes to everything, but if it aligns with what you're doing, I'd go and say, so it's a bit like the Nike, just do it, right? Bloody brilliant, because I'm that person. I go, I'm here and it suits, just do it.
And we live in an age now where all the information's just at the touch of our fingertips.
Yes,
and
you can learn it.
I'm a yes person. If I think that that's going to align with what I'm doing and I can make some money out of it, then I'll say yes and then learn how to do it.
Exactly.
All the time. But people will knock on my door about artwork. And I'll go, oh, can you paint me this? Can you do me that? And I'm like, oh, I've never done that before in my head. Yeah, okay, I can do that. Just,
you
give
can.
me such and such amount of time and I'll learn how to do it and I'll do it.
You can learn how to do it. I mean, it's not wrong, unless you can't pretend to be a scientist. You can't be, I've worked for doctors for the last 20 years. There's things that you go, seriously, I cannot make that promise. Yeah. But there's other things that I tell you what, Marie Forleo is absolutely right. Everything's figure-outable, right? So there are elements that if I don't know at this time, I had another inquiry this week of, if I put my book through Women's Biz Publishing, will it be available in these sorts of countries? Now, I didn't know that off the top of my head. I'm like going, I'm assuming yes is my response. I will just go and do the research. I'll go and find that out. I'll get back to you. If I can't do it, I will partner up with someone else so that we can make that happen, right? So everything, I think it's a bit of a yes, even if it resonates with you, it's a yes, I will look into that for you. I will see what we can do there.
I'll get back to you on that.
I will get back to you. I think some people think they've got to have certainty. They've got to you either can or you can't. And sometimes you go, well, I can have that response if I'm limited. If I'm so limited in who I am and what I offer as in my services, then I can walk that talk, right? So I can go, oh, yes or no. But if I'm actually in a growth mindset, right? If I'm living the journey that I do, I go, well, anything's possible. I'm just about to launch Women's Biz Shopping, a global platform in 2 weeks.
I know.
Right? So that's pretty exciting. I've got all these things happening. I'm going to have a TV show in the next 3 months. I'm going to have all these things. And I'm like going, if I can't be doing that and just loving the buzz of all these opportunities and the service value, the service that I'm providing people, if I then went, oh, I don't have that, right? If I didn't just say yes.
Or I'm not good enough for that.
Or I'm not good enough. Or what if it fails? Or what if people laugh at me? Or what if people go, oh, my God, Annie, could you post more social media? Now I go, oh, if you don't like it, just unfriend me.
Yeah, I do.
I've got a lot of friends and they just look at you like, once again, never heard someone say that. It's because, well, if it's not resonating with you, you should not watch that. Like, it's kind of like just cut the cord. I'm fine with that. I have no problem whatsoever. And so, in fact, it just frees up opportunity. Once again, it's just brought that tank down to maybe 80% because 20% of new people will come in.
Yeah,
right. So once you start thinking in that way, it's like, yes, say yes. So I very much, I spend time just when opportunities present, I go, does it align? So now, once again, I can have such confidence in this kind of response if I've got that strategic framework, if I actually know what I'm valuing, what I'm working towards, because it's almost like that fits in. It's like a cog in the wheel. If I can imagine if I had it, would it work? Yes. Well, then it's just the practicalities of working out how.
That's how I ended up with 7 businesses, Annie.
I know.
7 businesses, a mentor, an affiliate, a volunteer. Just give someone busy something to do and they'll find time to do it.
Seriously true.
Have you ever faced a time in your life where you've been in survival mode? And if so, how did you cope?
Oh, yes. I've seriously nearly died a number of times. So I was a severe asthmatic. And so I used to, so much so that I had such bad asthma until actually I had my kids. I still kept telling the doctor there must be a connection. Like after I had my third pregnancy. I just haven't had asthma since. So I'm not too sure how I just suddenly grew out of this life-threatening asthma. But I did, and the doctors say there's no link whatsoever. So
Who knows?
I'm obviously an outlier. But anyway, I had severe asthma. And so to that meant that I actually, here I am, Miss Love Outdoors and Adventure and Sport. I grew, actually, my childhood, it was like, don't do sport because you could die. And I seriously did. I got carted away in an ambulance from the school carnival when the teacher told me that I had to do the cross country. And I'm like, but I don't do that because I could die. And she goes, get your shoes on, run around there. So, of course, I nearly keeled over and died like out in the bush. And then after that, even when I first got married, I'd go, if I went for like, this lovely romantic beach walk, but I then realized I didn't have, a Ventolin puffer in my bag, I'd virtually have an asthma attack on the spot. Just the thought of it, like the psychology, the stress of not having it if I needed it would actually make me have an asthma attack. So I've had a number of those moments that I seriously was either with or without, and had been hospitalized a number of times, spent weeks on, this was in my early 20s, and it was just so devastating going, I'm a sickly person. And it was just so hard and so challenging, and it was like, I'm never going to overcome this. Like, how am I ever going to be this person? I used to look at sort of sporty chicks going, oh, I could just do all that. Imagine being able to hike a mountain or do something fun like that. So I think those sorts of moments. And then it actually, once again, was even if I am to live with asthma, I've actually got to go, if you have something, you've then got to have total control over it and make sure that it doesn't just define you. So you either
accept that it's in your life. You don't have to like it.
I didn't have to like it, but I didn't like it, so I didn't then have the medicine because I just refused to believe I don't want to be an asthmatic as if it's going to magically go away. Now, anyone who has a health condition knows that's not very smart.
No.
And it might have been this little rebellious, spunky sort of streak in me, which was not to my advantage. And so seriously, I nearly did die a number of times until I actually went, right, I know I told you the story of miraculously not becoming asthmatic. But before that, there was a good probably a decade in there that I actually have to accept this is a condition. I need to know everything about it. I need to pick up all the warning signs. I need to make sure that I don't get in those situations, that I don't have my medication. I need to actually find out, I took up swimming, for example, because swimming was actually going to build up my lung capacity. And I don't naturally love swimming, but I got into it probably because you've just got to wash your hair too often. It was a bit of a long-haired girl problem. But whatever, I kind of went, I had to actually go, sometimes you don't like everything, but I'm going to have to learn how to overcome it or to live with it. This, we've all got a bit of a thorn in our side. What is it and how am I going to manage it so that it's just a small part of my story and I can then go off and do other things.
And, that saying, what is it, short-term sacrifice for a long-term gain. So you hopping in the pool when you don't like it was that short-term sacrifice for a healthier life.
Yeah, and it had other advantages. So, yes, it may have affected, somewhere that asthma journey, but it also then made me realise that I had this narrative that I grew up with that you just don't do sport, you're not a sporty person, it could be really dangerous. So even just doing that for the asthma suddenly made me realise, if I can do a bit of swimming, then I can probably go for walks. I can probably do other things. And that sort of healthy lifestyle then affects the weight that you carry as well.
Yeah.
It's pretty chubby kid. And so that's certainly not a great way to be if you're a bit chubby and then you get told don't exercise. That's not going to be a good recipe. And so there's so many other advantages once you start to treat, focusing on one area, it'll overflow into other areas.
Yeah, that's right. If you could go back and give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Don't listen to naysayers.
Yeah. Don't listen to the weeds, as I call them. Don't
listen to those strangling, miserable weeds because they're just like, So I think every person listening on goes, you have these little little thoughts and dreams that come into your life. And so many people have even had them since they were children. They were ideas, dreams, ambitions, and we all have them. And as an 18-year-old, that's right. When I went and said, because my family wanted me to do pharmacy because my dad was a pharmacist. Now, me stuck in a shop 24/7 was not going to be a good recipe. I'm way too hyper for that. But anyway, and in the same year, my dad had 3 armed robberies. And I thought, one, I don't want to be stuck in a shop. And certainly I don't want to die from one of these druggy guys with a gun. God. And so I just had this moment to actually go, oh, I'm sure there's more. You know, that what is there? I'd love there to be something better for me, but I don't know what it is. But I probably got held back for the next decade. One, challenging because I had 4 kids in 2 years and all that sort of thing. So one, was I held back, or actually I was just living life. Living a busy life. But 2, everyone on that journey, while I used to say, I'm going to be a businesswoman one day, they'd laugh. They go, Annie, seriously, you got delusions of grandeur. You are never going to be a businesswoman. And then once I had my twins, oh my God, you're not, you're going to have to give that dream away. You're a mum of twins now. And then, of course, I have 2 sets of twins. And then I go, I'm still going to find a way, even if I have to buy a daycare centre. And then maybe I could put the kids in the daycare centre. Like I went really random, right? And I obviously hadn't thought through all the logistics, but I started looking at ideas. And every time I sprouted them through my entire journey, all I got was, that's not going to happen, or Annie's a bit crazy, or why isn't actually a sad thing. They went and said, why are you not content? Why are you never satisfied? And for me, that was actually worse, because I went, I am really content. But you can be content and love your kids and love your life and do all that and more. Like, why does it have to be a choice? Why is it like if you do one thing, you're therefore sacrificing or can't do another? It's like when you have kids and you go, I love you to the moon and back, and then you have another one and I love them the same. It's not like it's limited. No. So I think definitely that 18-year-old self is like, oh, my God, girl, you were right. Oh my, like now I look back and I run my multi-million-dollar companies and I do all these things and, and I go, wow, and if I could do that while seriously having 5 kids and having the journey that I've had, seriously, anyone could do things, like, oh, if you didn't have all of that, imagine what I could have done. Or imagine if I'd even started 10 years earlier when I went and said I'd love to. I had all these business ideas and then I went and had, my career journey. So before I then I became an entrepreneur. So that's what I do. I just go and say, Annie, don't listen to them. Just go, girl.
Yeah, that's what I would say too. Don't listen to anyone else's false beliefs. Just do it.
And they're false beliefs for me. They're untruths for me because they didn't suit me and my story for me. But they're not necessarily wrong for them. Most of what we accept may is what that other person is thinking. It's what their mind says. They would not feel comfortable doing it. They might think that's not possible. They might think they will resent you. They might be jealous of you if you're successful. They might not know how to respond if you become a really popular, amazing person.
You're also making them feel uncomfortable in their own lives, and that happens with weight loss. Yeah. When you're losing, typically with weight loss, when you're losing weight and you know that you've got maybe 5 or 10 kilos to go, but you're looking good and the weight's coming off, you'll have those weeds that will try and sabotage you. Or they'll say to you, oh, you don't need to lose any more weight. Oh, you're looking really gaunt. You're looking this, looking that. Or here, have another piece of cake. Have another piece of cake, because you are making them feel uncomfortable in their own lives. And it's the same thing when you're, advancing your knowledge, your business is booming. I've got some people in my life recently that, I can't even say it on air, that have really tried to pull me down in the last week. And it's like, well, you're not talking about me, you're talking about yourself. With it.
It's all about themselves. And they're not a bad person, but they're just seeing their world. You've got 2 very different gardens, if you like, in the language we've been sharing. And so where they are, that's their world. That might be absolutely exactly how they feel, but it's not going to help you. It's not going to add value to you. And even if you did all that, it doesn't help them. So it certainly doesn't help you, but it doesn't help them by even going over to that sort of space.
I need some Roundup for these ones.
Oh my goodness. So you definitely need to have strong boundaries, and you need to not make them one of your 5 for sure, and also just push back. So, and we get better at that as we get older.
Yes. Moving along, what's a book that you'd recommend to my audience and why? Have you got a business book that you'd recommend?
I do have. Well, I've got my books. Here we go.
Yeah, let's recommend one of yours.
Here we go. If you've got Twins, definitely buy Annie Gibbins' Twins book. It's not my story.
So it's Twins, Double Trouble, Double Treat.
Yeah, so definitely that is my book. This is one that I've recently just put out, which is a chunky book, and it's just jam-packed full of amazing ladies. It's a woman's guide to business domination, and so it is a anthology of just 20 successful women from around the globe who share their stories. I love that because each one of them is like this snapshot that you can imagine that then moving on to their own memoir. And they're so different. I find that it's so fascinating when you hear people's stories because like we're having our chats today and we get to know each other's journey. Every single woman that I meet around the world, they're all doing really interesting things and their backstories are so fascinating and what drives them every day is so fascinating. So I love those books. You know, I think one I read, it's called Thrive. I can't remember who wrote it. You know, I'll always have, you know, and then I've got other ones that I read. I read lots of businessy books, you know, like Scale Up or, you know, how to you know, what's that one? Don't give up. Don't you know to say that?
Yes, yes, you are always fair on this podcast. Yeah. That's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. I absolutely
every second person mentions that book when they come in.
Absolutely love it. Yeah, and How to Win Friends and Influence People. Like the principles of Dale Carnegie, absolutely fantastic. Anything by Jack Canfield, fantastic. So I'm all into what just, you know, makes you sort of just level up and just it's not about being on yourself or just being this, you know, too perfect, too amazing person. It's actually just people who just step into their presence.
So do you read them or do you listen to them on Audible?
Yeah, I've never listened to an audiobook.
Really? Because that's how I do most of mine is on Audible while I'm painting.
Probably is. I listen to podcasts. So podcasts I do. I always have them on the player, or I've just taken my granddaughter to dancing lessons. So I'll listen to a 40-minute podcast while I'm sitting outside or something like that. So bite-sized podcasts, totally love it. I just have never done the audiobook, even though my biography, which is Becoming Annie, the biography of a curious woman. It's you know, my daughter did the audiobook of that and so I've heard bits of it, but I've probably still never listened to the whole thing. I think that's not what it's about. For me, I go in once again these sprints, so I might not read anything and then suddenly I'll have a half you know, a weekend of just, you know, devouring something. Or when I go on holidays, I'll usually read like 4 or 5 books back to back. So I
try and read before I go to bed. And, you know, even if it's just a page or two, or, all right, this is going to sound really bad, listeners. I do read when I'm on the toilet. I'll read a page. It's amazing over a period of a month how many pages you can get through. You know, half a page while I'm sitting there. No one's disturbing me. The phone's not ringing. And
I couldn't do that. I need slabs. I need to, because I've got my attention span's not there. I'm always just got so many things on. So I'm just like zing, 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 zing. So I actually have to be all in or all out. So it's like, yeah, I'll go on a holiday and then James will laugh at me as soon as we, you know, get onto the plane or something. I'll then got the book out and then I'll be like pouring through and then, you know, and then the next 2 days later, I'll have another book going. So I just, I've got to be immersed into it. But that's my focus thing. Otherwise, seriously, if I was like you, Justin, I'd be going every time I went to the loo, I just read that same page again. Because no,
I'm pretty good at where I'm up to in the book.
So your retention's way better than mine. I'm just not.
So as you know, I do have 1,000 things on at once as well. So what's one question you'd wish that I'd asked you and how would you have answered?
That's a good question. You can ask me what's happening with Women's Biz Global, and I can tell you that.
Right, Annie, here's a question I'd like to ask you. What's happening with Women's Biz Global?
Thank you for asking, Justine. So my business is called Women's Biz Global. And so as you've heard, I'm all into empowering women to move from where they are to where they dream to be. And so I do that through these 8 different business arms. We've got a tribe and we've got coaching and podcast and summit speaking. And we've got a magazine and we've got a publishing arm. And now we're just about to start Women's Biz Shopping. And so for me, it's about people saying, oh, like, it's almost like if you're listening and you go, Annie, I can see what you're trying to do there. You've got a one-stop shop for women in business. Anyone who becomes an entrepreneur, you can just immerse yourself in this global organization, if you like, and tap into all of those things. So it's almost like I'd love the listeners to go, tell me what you want. If you're thinking, oh, I'd love to shop in a women's biz shopping, network. What brands would you like? What sort of products? Or if you've got a retail arm, Justine, you've got artwork. What would it take for you to go? Would you like? So for me, it's about I want to make sure that I serve my audience or a network well. So it's almost like, well, can you get these sorts of products in, or how, would you like to learn how to have your own retail shop? Or if you'd like to get published, how hard is it, Annie? It's not hard at all. You just come and have that chat and I'll go, wow, if you're a newbie, you might want to be part of a collaboration, right? An anthology. Or if you go, oh my gosh, I want to be known as the expert in XYZ, then come and let me know and we'll just work on getting that niche book so that you show up and go, if you ask me, if you had that moment and went, if someone could give you 20 minutes for a keynote, what would you speak on? What would be your thing? And you want to have the book on that. You want to have, so much content around that topic, right? So you, Justine Martin, resilience. You're the resilience queen. So you've got to have a resilience book. You've got to have a resilience
Working on that, Annie. I've written 10 chapters.
No, you've got 10 chapters. We're going to get that done because we want to make sure if that's your jam, right? And so my jam is I'm a success catalyst. I help women become successful on their own terms. And so everyone will have their jam. So what is yours? What are you doing to make it go on steroids? Despite what everyone wants, it's almost like you're dancing around naked and you don't care. You don't care who's watching. You're just like, I'm having so much fun here. I just want to be 100% comfortable in my zone. To get yourself to that place, what would it look like? And so, yes, I would love more and more people sort of just going, oh, what, if I don't have it in my business, I'd love to know so I can keep building it, so I can say yes, and then I'll work it out later. And if I'm not aware or also if there's people out there who goes, oh my gosh, I didn't even know there were businesses like that, then seriously, come and talk to me.
And if Annie can't help you, you can come to me.
If I can't help you, I tell you what, I will definitely send you to, any one of thousands of women that I connect with globally, and everyone's got their own little special gem, right?
Yeah,
and
I
love that. And you don't need to compete with that, because when you see what people are like when they shine in that unique space, like I'm a bit more of a broad all-rounder because I'm a CEO for a long time, but other people, when they've got their niche area, oh my gosh, like it's fantastic. I had so much admiration.
So now to some quirky questions. If you won $10 million tomorrow, what would you spend it on?
I would probably spend a fair bit on helping my kids all get a home, because we all live in Sydney, and so getting housing is quite challenging. So I'd probably do a 50-50 sort of view on that. So I've got 5 kids. I would give them $1 million each. What a best mum ever. And then I'd probably set up another aspect of Women's Biz Global, actually. I'd love to have a charity arm. And I've got a number of women in my network who are already doing amazing things, like Dr. Adama Calico, who was on my last Women's Biz magazine cover, doing humanitarian work in Sierra Leone and things like that. So I would love to actually set up, which is a future vision of me for Women's Biz, so once you go, but isn't this a charity arm? Well, hello, they take money because if you do it really well, it requires infrastructure. And so for me, I'm more focused moving forward once I've got all of the main things all happening in sustainable in Women's Biz Global to do more work on the United Nations sustainability goals. And so for that, I'd love to get involved in, water projects in Africa, education projects, being able to, skills and development. So I've got an RTO with my husband with his business. And so there's so many opportunities that I'd probably pour in a couple of million to actually go, because what I know is, with money, when people go, do you want more money? I go, yes. I've got no shy away from that, because more money means more opportunity. It doesn't mean you need to be selfish and you don't need to be sort of, having your fingers full of jewels. It actually, for me, just says, imagine what you could do with that. So it would seriously activate that philanthropic.
How many more people can I help with that?
How many more people can I help? And also the joy of that. And I've already done that. I mean, last year I gave away about $300,000 of scholarships on my program. So I'm already doing sort of exciting things.
Yeah.
So, but for me, it would be actually getting to a stage where it wasn't just Annie doing something. It would be that, my charity, and then you've got the infrastructure. You've got appropriate people employed who can make amazing things happen. And the great thing, because I've been a charity CEO for the last probably 6 years before where I'm at the moment, you can just do so much on so little. That's what I love. In the business world, you do your products and services, but in a charity, there's a different model, and it makes such a difference for so many people. It sort of just ignites my heart. So that's what I would do with my millions.
If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Probably exactly where I am. So I live in the northern beaches of Sydney, and just live in paradise, right? So I absolutely love where I am. I've been here my whole life, but I also love to travel. So, I'm a big fan. I love skiing in Japan or Canada. I love holidaying in Europe. I've just come back from Morocco and Portugal and Spain. I go to New Zealand probably every 3 to 4 weeks, and I love it. So I actually love travel, and I love it as sporty adventure. But with that, I also love my base, and also not only the home that I love and the environment that I'm just so blessed to be in, but also my 2 little granddaughters live like 3 kilometres down the road, and my family are here, and and that's one of my biggest values, to be a mum who's a really independent powerhouse who just goes after what she wants, but also if within my very organised calendar, if I can help, I would absolutely love to help, because I didn't get much help when I was having all of my kiddies. Did definitely from my beautiful husband, but not else. And so if I can actually, I just want to be really present in their lives. So, I would probably just stay exactly where I am.
What was your favourite subject in school, Annie?
Oh, it was actually, probably biology. I used to just love, I didn't love sort of, history and economics and bits and pieces. Probably I was a bit sort of just busy. I wasn't the most academic in school. I sort of peaked more after school. But I absolutely loved biology, which was really interesting. I just got fascinated by, the body, how things work, how everything interconnects. So much so that I, for a long time I was like, wouldn't it be cool to be a doctor or something, But
did you have to cut up the rat or the frog?
Oh, definitely frog. I did a rat.
We did rats. Thank God we did rats. I couldn't have cut up a frog.
No, we definitely did frog.
These big white rats we had to cut up. My frog died yesterday, so I'm still a bit touchy on frogs. I lost my beautiful girl yesterday. Okay, so now some really quirky questions for you. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Yes or no to what?
Pineapple on pizza.
Oh, pineapple on pizza? No.
Oh, I don't know if we can be friends anymore.
It's just too tangy.
Okay, tea, moving right along, listeners, on that one. Tea, coffee, hot chocolate, or wine?
Oh, wine. That was
red,
easy.
Red, white, or bubbles?
All of the above. Probably start with bubbles, then have a white, then go red once I've got my steak or something at the end. So.
Okay, we can be friends again. What's your favourite music?
Oh, I'm probably a Pink fan. Actually, I just went to the Red Hot Chili Peppers concert in Auckland last weekend. That was pretty great. But I've got a very eclectic sort of style. I'll go from Red Hot Chili Peppers to, Robbie Williams to Pink to a bit of Queen to, anything that's just got a bit of a beat and a fun. I love the girl concerts that are just, one, not just a listening to all the songs, but actually a theatre. I love a stage show. So
what's your favourite food?
Actually, Adele. I have a crush on Adele. Favourite food by far is Thai. I absolutely love Thai. We lived in Thailand for just a few months once, and I seriously could have Thai breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I never got bored of it.
Yum. Right. Here is the question. Does the toilet paper roll go forwards or backwards?
Oh, forwards.
Yes, okay, we're still friends. I'm OCD about that one. All right, Annie, where can my listeners find you online? How can they contact you?
The best way is to go to womensbizglobal.com and you'll find pretty much the whole world of Annie and Women's Biz Global there. You'll also find it on anniegibbins.com, but go to womensbizglobal.com and also just click on join the tribe and you get a free month to start. We get a little chat to meet each other and I get to find out what your jam is and what you're absolutely interested in and what your heart and soul and dreams are. And check out all of the things that are happening. And otherwise you'll find me on like every platform. So I won't go through all their links. Just find me on womensbizglobal.com.
And we'll have all Annie's details in the bio on any of the platforms that you're looking at or on the YouTube channel. Anyway, Annie, I'd like to thank you today for having a chat to me and my listeners.
Thank you. It's been so much fun. Wow, what an amazing selection of questions.
Thanks. Yeah, we like to keep you guessing. Anyway, listeners, thanks for your time today and tuning in. And remember, you know the drill. Stay resilient until next time.